Okay, I think we're ready. This is Mike from Dimensional Walking, and this is episode 6. And what I wanted to talk to you today about was there was an article recently in the general media. This particular one I'm looking at is from CNN, but I saw this article in Fox, ABC, NBC ran the same article. So I'm going to read a little bit of this article, and it's important because what it basically says is that the government is going to, in the next 180 days, bring out the facts and present it to the public of what they know. So we'll see. Anyways, here we go. When Donald Trump signed the $2.3 trillion coronavirus relief government funding into law in December, so began a 180-day countdown for the U.S. intelligence agencies to tell Congress what they know about UFOs. And the comment here is not really. The Director of the National Intelligence and Secretary of Defense have a little less than 6 months now to provide congressional intelligence and armed services committees with an unclassified report about unidentified aerial phenomena, which we call UFOs, of course. It's a stipulation that has been tucked into the committee's comment section of the Intelligence Authorization Act and the Fiscal Year 2021, which has contained in it a massive spending bill, as you probably know, $2.3 trillion. So it goes on to say the report must contain detailed analysis of UFO data and intelligence collected by the Office of Naval Intelligence. Let me stop here and kind of talked about naval intelligence. Over my 50 years, you hear about all these different agencies involved in the study of UFOs, FBI, different DOD, Air Force, Army, Air Force, Marines, etc., CIA, FBI. But what it really comes down to, I will tell you this, for after 50 years of studying this, it's all about naval intelligence. These are the guys that were in the middle of all the UFO studies and collecting intelligence, had bases and collecting data, collecting sites around the world. And they were been studying UFOs probably since well before Roswell incident. So naval intelligence. Remember that, okay? The Unidentified Area Phenomena Task Force and the FBI, according to the Senate Intelligence Committee directive. So they're going to collect, I guess they're going to continue to collect more data. It should also be described in detail, an interagency process to ensuring daily data collection and centralized analysis of all unidentified area phenomena reporting for the federal government. It designated an official response for that process. Finally, the report should identify any potential national security threats posed by UFOs and assess whether any of our nation's enemies can be behind such activity. Submitted such a report should be unclassified to the committee, although it may contain a classified annex. So it's going to be unclassified, meaning that should be able to go to the public, but then there will be a part of it that is going to be classified. So that's kind of the big if. Then goes on to say that this whole thing basically started to catch interest of a lot of people, especially congressmen, I understand, because of the 3 videos that I believe are called or are known as the Tic Tac videos. And those videos were, one video happened in 2004, another video happened in 2015, 2 videos happened in 2015. And basically, probably you've all seen them if you're interested in UFOs. This was basically the US Navy was tracking some unidentified flying objects, and when they got behind them, they got some wonderful video of it, and apparently it was leaked to the public or intentionally leaked. Maybe it was, we don't really know that, But anyways, the interest to the Congress and the interest to the public, of course, is really ramped up. So anyways, that's why this whole deal is happening now, and it was put into a bill, a huge spending bill, which is very, very unusual, I have to tell you. I've never seen this before happen, so maybe we're up to something here. Goes on to say, it's still unclear what the objects are, and this is the videos I'm talking about, and there is no consensus on where they come from. Some believe they may be drones, potentially operated by earthly adversaries seeking to gather information, rather than extraterrestrials, which we, of course, equate to UFOs. In August, the Pentagon had announced that it was forming a task force to investigate. And of course, people in Congress took it even farther and put it a part of this bill. So now it has to happen, basically. So members of Congress and Pentagon have been long concerned about the appearance of UFOs over U.S. military bases. So the Senate Intelligence Committee voted last June to have the Pentagon intelligence community provide a public analysis of these encounters, which I believe they have. Didn't really make the front page news, but it's been in some of the sidebars of the news. But it's not the first time the Pentagon has looked into aerial encounters with unknown objects. The Pentagon previously studied recordings of such incidents as part of a since shuttered classified program launched by Senator Harry Reid. Harry Reid, who was the majority leader of the House under the Democrats back in the late 2000 and I think it was from like 2007 to 2012. He's always been very interested in UFOs. I interviewed one of his, I guess it was one of his aides, and basically just told me that. It wasn't no detail other than, yes, Harry was really interested in that type of stuff. So anyways, with that said, let's talk about a few things here. And from a standpoint of what could they tell us if they wanted to? If they really wanted to, these are some of the things I believe they can tell us. First of all, what they can tell us, and probably what they will, is that for probably 75 years, they being the government and government agencies, have been studying UFOs. I believe it goes back a lot earlier, but at least 75 years, okay? So I think this is something they could tell us, and they probably will rehash it again and bring it up, et cetera, because there is a quite a few studies over the years that were done, such as Blue Book, Condon, Sign, Silver Bug, Robinson Panel, and they basically go into more detail on all those if they wanted to, and do it pretty safely. Because remember, in most of these, they pretty much talk about sightings, okay? They talk a little bit about contact, but most of it is in sightings. Saw this, a military plane saw this, this happened. Maybe we saw some UFOs over military bases. Maybe we saw some UFOs over nuclear plants, etc. So they really dealt on kind of the visual. Okay, they didn't talk too much, and now occasionally they would go into it where people had encounters, etc. Now, the other thing is there is at least probably 6 to 10 more than the ones I mentioned studies. Okay. But there was, more importantly, there was over 10 studies worldwide from countries like France, England, Russia, Brazil, Argentina. I think Japan had one. China probably had one, but they probably weren't telling us. But what I'm saying is it's really, there's been some great studies. And I think the ones that actually happen outside of the United States actually have more meat to them. Okay, a lot of them talked about encounters that people had on the ground with aliens, abductions, and also just direct contact. You know, where an alien would come up to them and look them in the eye, etc., look them and say something or imply something, etc. Even though I know that's happening in the United States, you don't really read about it in the studies, or they don't make that part open to the public. Okay. So, anyways, the next thing they could tell us is that there has been aliens among us. And what I mean about that is that there's aliens and probably hybrids that live among us. Now, most of them are obviously disguised as humans, but they are here. They have been for a very long time. Some of my own personal experience of seeing some aliens, as I would call them, in public, basically. It isn't always easy to see them, and sometimes you have to take a second look. But if you pay attention, sometimes you can see them. Sometimes it's more apparent. For some reason, one example was I was sitting in a restaurant in Las Cruces, New Mexico, and suddenly three of them walked in, and it was quite apparent that they were aliens. They were gray aliens, but interesting enough, I don't know why, but nobody else in the restaurant recognized them. My ex-wife, who was with me at the time, she also saw them, and it was quite an incredible scene. Even though they seem to be morphing in and out of kind of more looking like humans and then back to alien, but it was quite a sight. But anyways, they are among us, they are around us. So the government could tell us that. They know that. They absolutely know that as a fact. Okay, the next one is they could probably tell us that alien groups have been involved with our technology, have been involved in our society, in everything we do day to day. And that they should tell us, because the simple fact that our technology alone in the last 50 years has just taken quantum leaps that shouldn't have happened. I think a lot of this is probably some of the crashes, that probably dozens of crashes around the world. A lot of the technology that they found in those crashes actually are being used today. Some of our computer things, just a variety of different things that we do every day probably came from alien technology. And they could tell us that. They could if they wanted to. They probably won't. Next. One of the things I would tell you, they could tell us, is that we probably cannot, at least in the next future, live and permanently on the moon or Mars. And the reason I say that is because there's other beings on those two, well, one's a planet, one's a moon, those two locations, and they've been there, and they're not really happy when we come around looking. But to put a permanent settlement on either one of those would not work, and I say this tongue in cheek, unless Elon Musk knows one of them or knows some of them and makes a deal, then maybe. But chances are it won't happen. You'll see. It just won't happen. We may be able to go up there and visit and then take back off and go back, but I don't think they will allow any permanent settlements on those, the moon and Mars. Next, the government could tell us that aliens and alien hybrids have been involved with our governments. I mean, maybe part of our governments for a long time. This I really believe has been true, especially how sometimes we react, somehow other countries react in a very alien kind of non-emotional way in which we treat humans. So I believe they could tell us this. I don't believe they will, though. Okay. So basically all the above things I've talked about, I don't believe will happen. The only thing that I think will happen would be point one, which was the studies. I think they will go ahead, and I think they will go ahead and tell us about past studies, and maybe that they're going to do future studies and collect data and get back to us in 1 to 5 years from now. I just don't think they have the will to tell us that we have been involved in aliens around us, among us, and they've been involved with our societies and our humanness for many, many years. So, and the reason I say this is, I've done numerous interviews with government officials and aerospace people in the aerospace business. I'll give you one example. I actually, let me tell you this. I've actually did work for companies like Honeywell, Raytheon, Boeing, to name a few. I've worked for many other big companies, worked for through a logistics contractor. So I had some pretty high positions, and I also had some positions that needed high levels of clearances. So I got to see things. I'm not going to tell you these things, exactly what I saw, but I will tell you that I saw things on the ground in the field that make me believe what I'm telling you is being true. I'll tell you one story, though. One story I will tell you. This happened when I was traveling. I traveled a lot around the country. And one of my trips, I met somebody, a very interesting gentleman, and got to know him because we just happened to be flying to the same place on a weekly basis. He worked for an aerospace company at the time. So I would fly back and forth from my home, and he actually lived in the same city, to this location. And then I went to my work location and he went to his. But I happened to be on the plane with him many times. And so I got to talk to him for hours because we could sit together. So we did. And so it ends up, after several interviews, I was finally able to find out what he did for the government, or had in the past anyways. And this gentleman happened to be a program director for President Reagan, Star Wars. I know you all know about Star Wars. It was a defense system, basically, with lasers to kind of keep, China or Russia and anybody else on Earth from attacking us, but we're able to knock out their missiles basically in orbit. From orbit, actually, the satellite, the concept was that these satellite lasers would destroy missiles or other satellites in orbit, and that would protect us as a defensive weapon. So, anyways, come to find out after talking to him for hours, basically, probably one of the last interviews I did with him, he straight out admitted to me that those satellites, that whole Star Wars thing, had nothing to do with enemies on Earth. These were enemies from some other place. So that was kind of an eye-opening conversation, to say the very least. But anyways, that's good on that. That's good on that. So anyways, the reason I don't think that we are going to hear much more out of this, basically, is the simple fact that because of the timing. There's actually two things going on with timing. Right now, as we all know from the news, the daily news, that basically we have a lot of civil unrest in this country, number one. Number two, we have this pandemic, which is kind of tearing us apart also. And so I would consider that we are very fragile right now as a country. And I don't believe that adding UFOs and aliens to the mix is gonna help us at all. I really don't. So I don't think we're gonna get a whole lot more information than we already do know. You know, I think, like I said, they'll go into all these studies that happened in the past, and they'll talk about new studies, et cetera, and collecting data and all that good stuff. But we're not going to get any deep dive type information. And the other thing is, it's kind of interesting the timing of this coming out, because of the simple fact that it's like we can kind of say these things, the government can come out, but it kind of stays under the radar, meaning it doesn't become headline news. It basically is there. They're saying it, but it isn't that it's going to get, you know, that much press, because the simple fact we got all kinds of unrest, things going on, inaugurations, all kinds of craziness, and the pandemic, which is incredible on its own terms. So it's kind of a way to slide things in. It's sort of like, you know, a lot of times politicians will tell people something on Friday night, so they're not thinking too much, because they're thinking about their weekend. So you can slide things in, you know. Anyways, so the whole deal would be let's not break society. Let's not break our democracy any more than, you know, it is right now. So I think it could have been slid in there for that reason, but it seems like something's up. It really does seem like something is up. So, you know, I am all about truth. That's kind of why I run a website for, golly, it's probably 15 years now, called Truth Seeker Forum, which I've been studying paranormal things and other truths in the world. So what we've been fed basically on the UFO subject and aliens is a slow feed. This has been very painful and very slow. And I think right now that's a good thing, even though, you know, maybe 2 years ago I would have said, nah, let's just let everybody know. Let's let everybody know the truth and let it fall where it falls. I don't think so this time. I think it's better that it's slow right now. And maybe when we get through all this stuff, then we can accelerate that knowledge, that truth about UFOs and aliens. Anyways, with all of that said, that's kind of it for today. I hope you're safe. I hope, you know, your family's healthy and etc. And we will catch you next Wednesday with a brand new episode. And remember, if you like us, please tell us you like us. And you can send emails to dimensionalwalking@gmail.com. And you can also see us on Truth Seeker Forum, which we have probably 1,600 posts and articles on there for over the years. Thank you very much, and have a great day.